Ew. Wow. Hello out there. Internet TV land. Do we have my co-host? Um. Yeah, it should be. I didn't change anything. This is every time Otis will sleep all day, and then as soon as I get on a call, he just runs amok. Like he anything he can find to chew. You know, he peed on my bed last week. Like, yeah, like what the hell? He's just sitting by, like chilling, being like the best dog all day. Then all of a sudden, like for the 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes, we do this call. He is just Otis the Destroyer. Meanwhile, Blue is in the background. You can see him. Where is he? Right there, chilling on the pillow. I mean, we've only done this at 8 p.m. 3 weeks in a row. Let me text him. My guess is that he was getting a pizza out of the oven. Oh, okay. All right. Quality. Otis. You guys ran a test call right before this, didn't you? Oh. This is primetime Otis. Are we still broadcasting? Just licking my feet. Otis. Oh, there he is. Oh, we got Clay.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear us?
Yeah. Sorry about all that.
It's all good. It's all good.
I got freaked out by last time, so what I did was go to restart my computer so that everything was nice and clean, and then it wouldn't restart. So that was good times. Yeah, don't you like when that happens? All right, just give me 30 seconds. I'll be up and ready to go.
All right, there are 2 dogs on the couch in the background.
2 dogs. Testing audio. Okay, can hear myself. Everything great. I'm gonna record on my phone. Okay. Okay. So, like I said, sorry about that, but I am good to go.
All right, I'm rolling on sound and my end. Let's get cracking.
Okay, Jay, you let me know. Oh, for what? 10 minutes? You just went live without me?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'm sure this has been fantastic television. Oh, yeah, it's probably Brad for about 5 minutes till he realized that it wasn't working. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to another film flashback. As usual, this is Matthew, joined by Nick. And I just want to jump right into it today because we got into a really fantastic film from 1990. It's the original Tremors. Now, what's wonderful, I've got about 1,000 things to say about this. So in case you wanted to avoid spoilers, there's no avoiding spoilers. We're going to spoil the hell out of Tremors.
We're going to spoil it. If you don't like looking at our faces, this will be available podcast version tomorrow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. You can find us at Handlebar TV.
So the thing is, let's talk about the spoilers from the very beginning.
You're just going right into it. All right.
Because what I mean to say is that one of the best things about this movie is that everything that comes back later was all beautifully set up. And so in order for me to properly talk about what I like about Tremors, I have to mention that everything in the movie comes back literally from the first scene, the first shot is actually something that comes back later. It's all foreshadowing the whole time, so which is really beautiful. So Tremors is a movie, like you said, 1990, starring Kevin Bacon, I would say, would be the lead role, but also Fred Ward and Finn Carter as Rhonda. And Reba McEntire is in this movie, and it's very fascinating. So it's a monster movie, and it's pretty much a horror movie, except it's a PG-13 horror movie, which normally makes people kind of balk and go like, wait a minute, how are you supposed to make a quality movie? But it seems to be that the way they got from R to PG-13 is all they had to do was cut out the curse words. And everything else.
Let me ask you this. All right, I don't know. I think I saw Tremors at some point, but I'm watching this. First of all, we have a different definition of fantastic movie, by the way. I was watching this going like, I don't know about this, but we'll get to some of the things. Why? But all right, so I'm watching some going like, this isn't a horror movie. It's like, and so if you look, it's listed as a horror comedy, but at one point, I feel like they're like, no, this is a horror. And then it came out and people were laughing. They're like, no, just kidding. It's a comedy, actually. Like, at what point did they give it the comedy designation? It couldn't have been. I think that's why it became like, all right, so this movie, for lack of a better term, it tanked at the box office. It did not do well at the box office, but it had this massive resurgence, like Big Lebowski level resurgence, if not more, when it went on VHS, because people were like, I think. It was, and I have to watch a trailer. That's one thing I meant to do is watch a trailer. But like, I guarantee this was built as like, they come from the ground, and when there's an earthquake, it is Kevin Bacon in Tremors. But in reality, it's super goofy and super campy.
Well, it's fun. It's a ton of fun. In addition to being terrifying, and perhaps that's part of the problem. I mean, like why it wouldn't have been successful is because because of the kind of movie you think you're going to get. This is always a problem when you're trying to market something. You want to make sure that you can properly market it. And as a concept, it's about a very small group of people who live in a very spread out, rural, tiny town in Nevada in a geological basin. Essentially, they're in a valley, and they stumble upon a creature, and it's never explained in this film exactly what that creature is, in the sense of where it came from. But it's a straight monster, and it turns out there's actually a small crowd of them that these people have to fight. And so if you look at it as just a pitch, you're going like, oh, okay, I guess. And I was joking with you while we were watching it. I was like 15 minutes in going, okay, so the pitch here was Jaws on the land. And it sounds like that's exactly what the pitch was.
Yeah, so this this was originally called, and I have it on here. Yeah, so the original name was Land Shark for this movie, and it was basically like, this movie is a Jaws ripoff. It's Jaws with the worm shark on land, kind of. But SNL had already done a spoof on Land Shark, and so they had to change the name to Tremors.
Yeah, this is something I want to get into. It's going to be a theme through the conversation where it's like, this movie is clearly part Jaws and part Jurassic Park, although it predates Jurassic Park, no pun intended.
That's a Hudax joke. So, it's like, as soon as this movie starts, you get the Universal titles, and my first thought was like, how is this not a Universal ride?
Right?
This is the perfect Universal ride.
I want to check. Like, I feel like it must have been an idea, or maybe it was for a while, and then it was before we started going to Universal.
Well, I'm from Orlando. I remember they didn't have this as a kid, but there would have to be at least part of the studio tour for you. If you're familiar with the studio tour at Universal, you kind of see a bunch of different movies. They have like Fast and the Furious now. It's certainly updated. And I don't know if Tremors now, it would hold up because one just came out, I think, this year. This movie is 30 years old now. by the way.
Yeah.
But I think it would make a good ride. When you talk about it's fun, it is fun. I do think it would make a fun Universal ride, or at least as part of a ride.
Yeah, so the basic premise is those monsters, and that's kind of the whole thing. And so you might say, well, as a premise, this is very simple, and I guess sort of, it's not the craziest, most imaginative thing in the world. So when I say that I really enjoy it, what I'm talking about is the execution. I want to get my hands on the script and give it a read, because I thought it was really, really tightly written. Like, there's no, like, fat on the script. And what I really enjoyed, I'll put it as simple as possible, is that other than the monster, that is the only thing that's outrageous in the whole story. So you take the one outrageous element, which is the point of making the movie, which is these monsters in the ground, but the characters are so real, and they make real people kinds of choices. They say real people kinds of things. They don't make stupid horror movie decisions like running upstairs to the attic to get trapped. They think of everything and they try everything, and the screenwriters just go in and deny them every out. Nope, sorry, can't do that. Sorry, that's not going to work. To just keep the tension and the plot rolling along for a straight hour and a half, like, without letting up.
You do kind of jump into it, but I get, so my disagreement on the script, I text you while we're watching this. I said, this sounds like a script that Burt Reynolds threw away in the 70s. It's like a spin-off horror comedy from Smokey and the Bandit. Like, the way some of these characters talk, like, I'm going like, what? Like, and I'm watching Kevin Bacon going like, this has got to be the low point of Kevin Bacon's career. I know it's had success after he did it, and so I'm watching him going like, first of all, he's terrible in this, and like, I don't even know if he phoned it in. Like, I don't think he really phoned it in. I thought, like, at first I'm going like, did he do this movie to like practice? Like, is he from Alabama? I don't know. Like, he's just got this generic Southern accent. And I wasn't buying it, and so that I'm looking it up, and evidently, like, this was the point of his career where it's like, I don't know, am I done? Is this what I'm just making movies with worms in the sand now? This sucks. And you can tell that comes off to me that he went into it. I don't know. I thought it was maybe the worst. His performance in this movie is completely overrated. It's terribly good, if that makes sense.
Have you seen Footloose?
He peaked in Animal House.
I hate Footloose. That movie stinks. I thought they were realistic portrayals. I believed every one of these people was a real person. And what I part of what I enjoyed is that when you take a movie that's set outside of the major city, because it's always city people who make movies, that they normally take like one of two tracks to try to portray people who don't live in a big city, and a lot of the time it's really horrifyingly negative. And there's also these stupid ways that they go about it, like as if they're space aliens, where they have to insert a city slicker in there to be like the foil to like, so it's like what you mean? But here they had like people just acting like people who would live in a valley in Nevada actually would be, and how they might react should this horrifying situation come upon them. And there was no stupid commentary about about the fact that they were rural people. Nobody was calling anybody any dumb names, and it wasn't over the top, and they weren't acting like movie rednecks. They were acting like people to me. I mean, maybe that's my impression. Maybe
From a character action standpoint, yes, it'd be like, oh, there's a giant thing. First of all, they try to get away. They're not like, hey, let's just kill this thing right now. So they go away, and then
they come up with good plans. The plans just don't work out, but the plans make sense. Yeah.
Right. And then they're like, let's get all the guns possible and make bombs. I even thought their plan with the bomb to get it to drag it under the sand. That was one of the most clever things that they did.
And I love that there were enough monsters. Like, this is why I said spoilers, because here we are, like 5 minutes in.
Oh yeah. Well, it's 30 years.
So it's like. So there were enough monsters that they tried it once and it worked, and you bought it. You were like, yeah, that would work. And then they try it with the last monster. It takes the bait, but it spits the bomb back, and that was wonderfully set up. It didn't feel like that was a cheat. because these monsters had already spit back a few mechanical items, over time. So one of the things I was talking about, how they spit back the things, and that's set up. So when I was saying before, everything's set up. There's just a few things that get set up and then paid off later. In the first moment, you've got Kevin Bacon's character standing on the cliff. He's taking a piss over the edge of the cliff. It's the first shot of the film. It's also the climax of the film at the end. And he's joking about stampedes. And then at the very end, he's like, well, that's how I got my inspiration for the stampede. You've got the barbed wire is set up, because right after that, they're setting up the barbed wire. That's hurt. Later on, Rhonda gets caught in the barbed wire. You've got you first meet the gun nuts. The way that you meet them is when they go to when these other characters that we've been following go to the shop, and the guy's buying hollow point bullets. And I was like, hollow point bullets? Can you even buy those? Can you even buy those anymore? I'm not all up on my ammunition law, but but it tells you something as soon as about it. He was saying, yeah, these are hollow points, but they're not the brand I want. They set up the fridge noise in the shop that gets pulled off later. The bulldozer. They set up the girl on the pogo stick. Obviously the seismograph. You've got the one guy with a throwaway line going, I'm not accusing anybody. I'm just saying some of my cattle are missing. Everything is beautifully set up, which is why I'm complimenting the screenwriting. Like, it's tight. It's really
I think the reason it comes off as so fun is because it you just kind of jump into it and then you just go. There's no like exposition of where they meet this guy that's like, oh well, actually about 100 years ago today we had the same problem. It's like there's no exposition actually at all in this, which is kind of fun.
And to your point, the one scientist is like, I don't know what this is. It's new. And they even make jokes about it where occasionally they keep asking her and she goes, why do you keep asking me? I don't know. Yeah. And so instead of having the stupid character who's like the expert on the thing, they're just like, there is no expert. And it's
her last line is something along the lines of, well, I can't wait to research these things.
It's going to be great.
Now, yeah, hey, check into episode 2. It's PG, and she researches the Tremors the whole time.
It's super boring.
Live from a library near you. Tremors 2.
Just 3 hours of her reading.
So I was trying to, I thought it was real. I think I brought up, touching this earlier. So this movie did $11 million budget, which I feel like was too much for this movie. Like, that had to be of the $11 million. How much went into practical effects?
I'd say
10 and a half.
Almost all of it.
Yeah, that's what I would think. Because
unless Kevin Bacon commanded a big salary or something.
I'm sure he did okay. Like, they probably got a deal on him though. Like, for this script, I don't know, you would think they'd have to pay him for this. But so this again, it's crazy why movies, and I don't like, there's not a formula for this, but it's happened for a long time where movies tank at the box office and then become these cult classics. Like, I'm watching this and going like, all right, most movies that are cult classics are you rewatch, they have nostalgia, and there's like one scene that you remember, like a couple moments that you remember specifically. And when you go back and watch it, you might be like, oh yeah, this is terrible. Yeah, I remember liking that scene as a kid. There wasn't a single scene in Tremors that I saw and I was like, oh right, the scene where the Tremor bites the guy's head off. And maybe I just hadn't seen it as much as a kid, but I don't think, like, what's the iconic Tremors scene?
All right, so there's a couple. First of all, there's when the thing busts into the basement with the two gun nuts, and they go at it for like 8 minutes, shooting it with every gun in their basement. That's pretty iconic. When I would say that when the guys first get chased, when they're on horseback, they get taken down, and they kill it by having the thing run into the wall. And again, it's a great foreshadowing, because the point is the thing can listen, but it can't see in front of itself. So it ran straight into a concrete wall and it killed itself, which is similar to how Bacon lures it to its own death at the end. And then they have to kind of go through the thing, and they sped up the explanation and all of the backstory a lot, because a lot of movies have boring reason. But she starts going off while the two guys are arguing, and she starts pointing at the seismographs. She gets about halfway into an explanation saying, see, there were 2 disturbances at the same time, and they just have Kevin Bacon's character, Valentine, just interrupt her and go, we'll take your word for it. And I was so happy because I was like, that's how the audience always feels. They go, look, we buy it. We get it. You figured out that there were more. We don't actually need to spend 4 minutes going through
Well, that sounds
details.
good to me. Let's just...
but I didn't not buy it. I thought, yeah, that was excellent. Yes, please keep the story moving. We don't need like a lot better explanation than that. That was plenty. We get it. There's more of them. Moving on.
So you like the script, the writer of this, S.S. Wilson. He was the main...
There's two guys. Wilson
S.S. Yeah. Who was the other one?
Brent Maddock.
Okay.
I think they're partners.
So you might remember these movies, Short Circuit. Yes. The entire Short Circuit series, as a matter of fact. Batteries Not Included, which is great, and Wild Wild West. So I have a fonder memory of those movies than I do Tremors, for sure.
Ghost Dad as well.
Oh, Ghost Dad. Also, yeah. Don't sleep on Ghost Dad.
It looks like that Short Circuit and especially Tremors is paid their mortgages for the last 30 years.
Yeah. Has Ghost Dad come up in every episode, every podcast?
Maybe.
We just need to watch it. We need to do one from Ghost Dad.
And just pretend that Bill Cosby's not a vicious son of a... I actually remember that movie because in 1992 we were moving into a new house, and so it wasn't done yet, and we were walking through the unfinished wall and like stepping through the 2x4s going, look, I'm Ghost Dad.
Sounds fun.
I was 6. So I thought that the monster design was actually really good. Like I said, I'm going to only have good things to say, so this is great. Okay. I thought the monster design was great, and part of the reason it was great was that you didn't, much like Jaws, you didn't see the monster for a good while into the movie. They were still exciting, and people were getting killed, but you didn't see it, so it was still mysterious. And then when you did, you saw the smaller ones, the ones where they were like the circumference of a softball or something. And you were like, oh, so the monster must be these snakes that have the head the size of my open hand. And that's part of the creature design, because later on you find out that the things are actually the size of a whale.
Right.
And they spit these snakes that are smaller than that out of it. And it was almost like a fake out where you thought you'd seen the monster, and it was like, you have no idea.
Yeah, that's like a video game boss. It's like Mega Man. When you beat the mini boss, it's these little snakes. Yeah. And then there's a big snake at the end. That's still a video game. They did make video games of this, by the way. I don't remember playing in terms of video game, but so I was checking some stuff out after we saw it, and evidently the artists renderings of these monsters when they're designing them, they're a little fleshy. I guess some of the original drawings looked like foreskin. They wanted to look like turtles' necks. And so when they would go to they'd send these the opposite, fax them in at this time, I'm sure. They'd get around the office and everyone's just be walking around giggling at these like penis monsters going through the sand.
Just so tough to make a monster that isn't a penis or a vagina. Like, do you ever see Dreamcatcher?
I mean, the Demogorgon is a butthole from Stranger Things.
Well, there you go. Well, look, it's because we're all disgusting, and we're all 8th grade boys. Did you ever see Dreamcatcher?
No.
The monsters in Dreamcatcher are great, but they're totally just like vaginas with teeth. It's really hard.
So I wrote... The animals they use to design the monsters are elephants, crocodiles, dinosaurs, all of them, I guess, rhinos, slugs.
Well, they kind of mutate a little bit. They're different ones in the sequels, if I remember right.
Well, this month on Film Flashback, we'll be covering Tremors 1 through 5.
Nothing else to do.
Why not? I think most of them are on Netflix.
So there were a handful of things that I really enjoyed in terms of the filmmaking quality of it. So I really liked that you didn't for a second think you were in a studio. You felt like you were in this desert town the whole time. It was very realistic. It felt tangible. And when they came to these expensive practical special effects, the monster, that goes without saying. But how about just the dirt raising up and cracking underneath the monster?
That was pretty cool. I actually took note. That was my favorite effect that happened.
I mean, and
I was going like, how'd they do that with planks?
Actors in frame with this awesome practical effect, so it you can tell that it's really happening. The horses being freaked out and all the rest of that. It was like I felt like it was really happening.
It didn't. I wasn't at any point that scared. So I guess there's two. One, I feel like if I was in that situation, I could get out. Like there's a lot of horror movies you watch and you're like, nope, I'd be dead immediately. And then, but this one I'm going like, I could probably get out of there. But also this movie, you can't, when you look at horror movies now that are older, like a lot of them, it's like, well, they just had a cell phone. Not a problem. But this movie, if you have a cell phone, you realistically there probably wouldn't get reception. And then even then, like every person you called that would drive up would get attacked by the thing, right? So like it kind of passes the cell phone test at least.
It does. They go to they make sure that they check every box off about like phone lines being taken out and roads being hard to pass, and the fact that they live in a valley, which is why these things can be in the valley, because there's all this loose topsoil. And it's like, and they even acknowledge like, well, that's why we chose to live here, because it was remote. You know, it's kind of like when, a real classic, The Thing from the early 80s, where it's like, well, why are they all alone in the middle of nowhere? Well, it's like it's built into the setup why they're alone in the middle of nowhere. And I felt that I bought it, why these people were isolated. I thought this makes sense that at least 11 people might be in an isolated place for their own reasons. Like that was believable. That would be. It wouldn't be believable if it was 1,000 people, and I wouldn't buy if they had the stupid city slicker character, which they didn't have. But these people, I'm like, yeah, I believe it. Especially since the guys hate the place, and the whole beginning of the movie, they're trying to leave. They're like, this sucks. Let's get the hell out of here. Let me double check this, but I'm pretty sure Ron Underwood, who directed this, ironically directed City Slickers. He did. Yeah, Ron Underwood. Yes. So maybe he fought for like the city guy the whole time in this movie, and they just denied him on it. And he's like, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm gonna make a movie only about guys from the city. That is too funny. Oh man. The only thing I felt that didn't really get super like paid off is the fact that they made them just like crazy smelly, the monsters, where they don't mention it once or twice, they mention it like 11 times. Yeah, how bad the stink of the monsters is, and in the end that is like just a handy thing to help fill out the world. It doesn't really play into the plot that they smell all that much. And it's like, that was the only thing that wasn't useful. And that's me nitpicking, because everything else that happened or was put into the story ended up being useful and helped tell the story. But yeah, I guess at what point does your fear overtake your smell, where you're willing to deal with it as long as you survive, but it smells terrible. And we on Film Flashback have talked many times, I bring it up a lot, about like no one talks about how bad things probably smell. Like we did some horror ones, and like there's a rotting corpse there. It's been there for 3 weeks. They're like, oh my god. It's like, no, that would smell terrible, But at least they addressed that these things don't smell good. So I really appreciate a movie that says we have a premise and we're just going to stay on target and explore that premise as much as possible. When at the very first Film Flashback we did, you and I had different feelings about Steven Spielberg's first movie, his made-for-TV movie. Yeah. And it's like, that movie is just about a truck, but basically with a nameless nobody driver. It's mostly just a truck that's a monster chasing a guy that you don't know his name, and you're scared. But it was like let's try to figure out every possible thing that might happen if a guy starts being stalked and chased in a murderous way by a monstrous truck. So it's like just explored the hell out of that concept until there was nothing left to do with it. And when I watched this movie, I got those kinds of vibes. I got dual vibes where it was like, we have a concept here. There's a valley full of like 11 people that are cut off from the rest of the world. What would happen if there were monsters there? And they just, I didn't leave feeling like I normally do with a horror movie where I go, well, why didn't you just do this? I felt like they thought of everything.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it just wasn't for me. You know what I would almost rather seen is like Redneck Clue in that city. You know, where it's like there was actually not a monster, it's just a psycho, and you got to figure it out whether it's like Sally Mae or whoever, you know, Billie Jean or Ray, whoever the killer is. Again, I don't know. I just didn't find the Tremors particularly scary.
That you really liked or characters that you didn't?
I didn't care for Kevin Bacon that much. I did like my guy Fred Ward, who played Earl. Yeah. Fred Ward, really good.
Excellent.
I mean, he's been around the block too, man. That guy's had a good career. But I like him in that. What's funny is like he's got the look like I was looking at him going like, where's this guy from? He's like a Southern Italian.
Yeah, he has one grandparent who is from Guadalajara.
And then I'm looking at like I was looking at his IMDb credits. It's like Corky Romano and all these other mob stuff. like oh okay, yeah, all right.
I was pleasantly surprised by Reba McEntire as the gun nut wife.
Yeah,
I thought that was a fun little turn.
What'd you think about the kid?
Well,
they didn't really explain his story.
They give the little girl. This is another Jurassic Park reference. The young blonde girl on the pogo stick. You want to talk about an iconic moment? I remember this. The little girl on the pogo stick.
Yeah, Ariana Richards is her name from Jurassic Park.
She's from Tremors and then is in Jurassic Park. It makes me feel like I feel like Steven Spielberg saw Tremors and it had echoes. It's in his head as he makes Jurassic Park.
Because did she even have a line? I mean, she's older in Jurassic Park. She's probably like 5 in this movie.
She's only got a couple of lines. They're very short, so in the beginning, she's set up before the monster reveals themselves. Before they reveal themselves, it's set up when the guys are just talking to her mom, and she's got her Walkman on, and she's pogo sticking, and the dude just asks out of nowhere, "Well, what's the count up to now?" Just implying that she's always going for some kind of record, and it's great because you move on and never think about it again until everybody else is huddled down making no noise, and she's down the street with her headphones on, bouncing on her pogo stick, and everybody's like, "Oh no, you're crazy!"
Yeah. That was probably my favorite scene in the movie. That was my favorite scene, the pogo stick. But again, I don't remember seeing that scene, but that one stood out to me this time around. And the other kid,
the teenage boy.
The teenage boy. So I was going like, where's his parents?
He's just a pain in the ass the whole time.
I read, I guess, like the original script, like they never explained the script, and they later on said, like, I don't know, like the kid's kind of a jerk, so his parents probably just left him there and went to Vegas. Just left him and they never came back to get him.
Yeah, like he gets yelled at like 11 times and never gets a moment to redeem himself. He's just, first of all, he's scared. At one moment, they show him hiding in a shack while our main woman, Rhonda, has her ankle is being taken. She's like wrapped up in the barbed wire, and she's about to go in like Lando Calrissian in Return of the Jedi into the mouth of the beast, and they show him cowering back and closing the door behind him. So in addition to being a jerk, he's also a coward, and he never gets any chance to redeem himself. He just ends the movie. I mean, he's alive, but he never gets like a moment.
At the end, he's like, "Yeah, guys, we did it." They're like, "No, you didn't do anything. You're still a little jerk." It's like Nelson Muntz.
Yeah, we should have stuck a bomb in your pocket and sent you out into the desert.
Hey, kid, go take a long walk off a short bridge, huh?
They actually make that joke in it. They go, "Why don't we just send his useless ass out there as bait?"
I was actually looking because I was going like, where? I know where they shot this in Death Valley area. It's like what it might be like 4 hours outside of LA. And because I was trying to figure out where it was. So that kid had like a purple and gold basketball jersey on. It didn't say Lakers. Again, relatively low budget. But then the gun guy had an Atlanta Hawks, a corduroy Atlanta Hawks. That bothered me, bro. I'm going like, I need a little backstory with this guy with that Atlanta Hawks hat in the middle of the desert in Death Valley. Corduroy Hawks hat.
Never explained why this guy had it, unless he was just. Unless what they were, it was like, wait a minute, so he's supposed to be from Georgia and Nevada? And it's like, wait a minute, is this just movie written by people from LA and New York who feel like everybody else is just like a hillbilly?
I feel like that guy might have been like, he was like in witness protection, possibly. It was like, who's your favorite team? The Hawks.
Dude, I swear. This movie was the most pro Second Amendment movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah. We joked during the movie, this is Charlton Heston's favorite movie. There's so many guns.
There were so many guns. And they would never have... The characters in this movie don't make it out alive, except for the guns. And so it's like the whole time there were these extended sequences where they're just firing intense amounts of ammo from like as if it was the military. The military never appears in this movie, but there's an arsenal of weapons. I just like, okay, so was this movie sponsored by the NRA? You know, there's so many moments where people are handing other people guns and they're winking at each other like, yeah, we're going to do this. It's like if this movie takes place in, France, it's over in half an hour. Everybody's just...
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what we're saying. Like, what are they going to... This happens in France. What are they putting out their cigarettes on them? Like, hey, how's this going to go?
Look, man, I don't own any guns. I'm not like... That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like this... The plot of this movie doesn't happen the same way unless it's in a place like rural Nevada where you might have an arsenal in your basement.
Yeah, that's. I've been in Nevada to shoot guns out of like Western, like hours outside of Las Vegas West. There ain't a lot out there. They could exist. No.
So you don't have to think Tremors is a classic. It's not like that. It doesn't. But I think everybody can see that I love Jaws because it's on my wall behind me as we talk, and Jurassic Park is right there. And this movie, I feel like if you didn't see those, then you won't fully appreciate where it sits in movie history because it's between the two of them. When they're doing their bit about be quiet or else the monster will hear you, and you've got other characters making noise to distract the monster, I'm like, okay, well, this is just what they do with the T-Rex. 2 years later, when Jurassic Park comes out, it's the same bit where it's like, oh, don't move. She can't see us if we don't move. There's just a lot mixed in of both of those better and and more famous films, like built into this one.
Okay, so I'll give you the script from a beat perspective works. I feel like the dialogue was like, well, I'll just put in some dialogue as a placeholder and we'll come back to it later. And they never did. And then we talked about this every episode too. I like the practical effects. Like practical effects hold up. That should be like the slogan of our show. Because practical effects, it makes it still watchable. Like all CGI, it gets dated very quickly for the most part. But practical effects hold up. And I don't know how much influence. This is a practical effects movie too. I'm sure outside of the two leads and Reba McEntire, they did not pay the cast a ton of money for this movie, and it was relatively low budget. I don't know how much Jurassic Park took from this movie though. I feel like a lot of the elements in Jurassic Park we got in other Spielberg stuff. I don't think he was watching Tremors going like, oh man, I need to like take a notes on this stuff.
No, maybe. I mean, I don't have any evidence to say that that's what happened. All I'm saying is that when you find these similarities, we should at least acknowledge the fact that Tremors came out in 1990 and Jurassic Park was 93. But it doesn't mean that. What I mean to say is that what makes a good monster movie it's all there. So the things that we like about Jaws, which is partly a monster movie, the things that we like about Jurassic Park, which is partly a monster movie, and then other monster movies that you can name as well, those things are there in Tremors as well. So I'm being like the ambassador for Tremors.
You are the Tremors ambassador.
I think it's excellent. I'm gonna read.
I think Kevin Bacon phoned it in. I thought he was terrible.
It's too bad.
In this, I like Kevin Bacon, but
it's too bad. Well, I'm super glad we watched it. I thought it was a perfect choice for it.
Look, it is a fun movie. I mean, look, have a beer and watch Tremors. I'm not saying it's terrible. It's fun, but it's not, go into it knowing like, yeah, this is a cheesy horror comedy. And I will stand by that. They didn't mean for it to be a horror comedy. They were originally they had R designation because there are 22 F-bombs in the movie. And so that's why you hear Mother Humper or Thumper.
Mother Humper. You can see that it's ad-libbed where he says F, but you can hear him say Humper.
They took out of the 22, they took out 21 to get the PG-13 rating. I think they just had to I think they wanted to make one movie. Well, first of all, it's all during the day too, except for the one car scene at night. It's all during the day. It's a horror comedy. I think I was expecting more of a horror type thing. I didn't think there was a lot of suspense. I did think it was fun. It's more of an act, way more of a comedy than a horror to me. But it's fun. Have a beer, watch it. It's on Netflix for free.
Yeah, absolutely. Go watch it, and make up your mind for yourself. I mean, I'm so stoked we watched it. I think especially now that we're making more of these, it's going to be really exciting to just keep going at it. I love when you don't feel the same way about the movie that I do. We're gonna have a great time. We're gonna wrap this one up, but we're definitely gonna be continuing to do these on Thursday nights for right now, anyway. So we'll probably do another one next week, and we're gonna release this as a podcast tomorrow. So I mean, Nick, tell everybody where they can find us.
Yeah, so you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio finally got added, and I think we're eyeing Bloodsport for next week. Possibly it's free on Netflix. So if you haven't seen the Jean-Claude Van Damme classic, that is on Netflix. It is. I remember that being. So I remember Bloodsport.
I remember Bloodsport.
And so that'll be fun. We'll probably most likely have a guest for you.
Sure.
But it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully you've seen Tremors. Let us know if you agree with us at handlebar_TV. That's all I got. Matt?
Yeah, this is going to be fantastic. I can't wait. We're gonna do another one of these next week, and we'll probably keep this ball rolling. We're having a lot of fun. So thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
See you, Mother Thumpers.
See you, mother thumpers.